Good evening, Sunday night again, and as usual, I'd like to review what we did last week and give you a preview of what's coming. And tonight it's a little different because um, this is week 5, and as I've explained previously, I like to put the midterm exercise, as I call it, into week 5, not into week 4 as in many classes. So the real feature this week is that particular item. It's the midterm, and it's, I think, fairly self-explanatory, but I think it's an assignment that you'll hopefully enjoy, if there is such a thing as enjoying a midterm exam. And it's not really an exam, it's a chance to put together a lot of what you've learned already and what we've talked about. And I think it can be, honestly, can be fun and certainly can be interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing what works with that. So accordingly, with that, because I do want everybody to put their best effort forward and to really give it a lot of time and a lot of thought and a lot of critical thought, there's not going to be a discussion this week. All right, so a little bit of a break on one side and a little bit more work on another. So let's just start tonight to look back just for a few minutes on what we did last week, and then the fact that the midterm exam is included doesn't mean there isn't new material in week 5 on something very important and very important to the whole concept of sport economics, and it's what we need to concentrate on. Okay, so last week we looked at competitive balance, and a lot of folks did, again, a lot of very good thinking and a lot of very good writing, and an excellent discussion again about the whole subject of competitive balance. And we do see how leagues function now. It's almost we could have maybe retitled it, calling it more about the function of leagues and what value do they provide in their respective sports. What do they provide to teams? What do they provide to the fans? What do they do? How do we accomplish things? You know, you think back to what if nobody had the same rules? What if the ideas of competitive balance were really stacked in favor of the home team? You know, what would happen? We really looked at it. What happens when you have dynasties? What happens when everybody is capable of beating everybody else? I think what we saw last week was a lot of different, some theoretical things and a lot of practical things, and we got to indulge a little bit into some of the, what I call, more fan-oriented ideas when we really get carried away with, you know, what do we want to see for our favorite team? Well, what's good for the business of sport? Is it good to have a few winners and a lot of losers? Is it good for everybody to have a chance? Is it good for having a big winner constantly in a big market? Do we really want a loser in New York City and a Windsor in Oklahoma City? Windsor. I can't even speak tonight. I've been out coaching all day. But you see, the thing is, what happens is there are many different ways of accomplishing this. We touched upon drafts, we touched upon salary caps, we touched upon the soccer system, promotion and relegation, and many of you successfully started previewing that back when we were talking about profitability. And you can see how these efforts at regulating or managing or balancing the business issues sometimes do go hand in hand with what happens on the field. So I think that was a very interesting discussion. I have, as usual, there are a few more things I'm sure to come in tonight, and I hope to get a chance to just finish that up. And I'm going to really try to be a little bit more prompt than I have been in the last couple of weeks. It's been just a very busy time for all of us, and especially at the university. And there's a lot going on. A lot of positive things are going on, and I think they will be to everyone's benefit. So just stay with me on that. Now, what is coming up this week in terms of new material is something that I think a lot of people have seen in many different ways. Big markets, small markets, not necessarily just professional sports, but sometimes in college sports and even amateur sports. The idea of what's the value of sports to a community? Does having a franchise in your city bring a positive economic benefit. And generally, we see arguments that are on the positive side. And I think in many cases, we think right off the top of our heads, well, it's good to have. We talk about everything from economic benefits to civic benefits. Civic in being civic pride and really meaning something to a community. Think of Cleveland this past spring, okay, back when the Cavaliers won. So these are the kind of things you want to look at. Now, there are, as I mentioned, there are theories on both sides. There are those who say that sports really doesn't have that much of an impact and it's not that big. It's just more on the civic pride side, but the economic value is not that great. On the other hand, there are very strong arguments that having professional sports or a major college sport in your city, or even a one-time event like the Olympics, or one that's very an annual occurrence in our sports culture in the U.S. is having the Super Bowl in your city that year, or being a site for the NCAA basketball tournament that year, has a very major positive impact. Really take a look at this material and keep that in mind as we go forward into next few weeks, because I think this economic development side is extremely important and something we need to keep in mind. Now, I've included of the old, as I often do, the old video from the last time the course ran, and that happened to be in the spring, and the timing was just such so that the subject of the midterm exam was falling right in line with what was happening in the world of sports at the time. So I've left that up and in. But in a nutshell, your assignment in this midterm exercise, I've mistakenly a couple of times referred to it as an exam, it's to take a look at yourself as though you were the general manager or the owner of an NBA team. And every year this happens, we see a team that hasn't been struggling, but maybe has been right on the verge of making the playoffs. And there are all sorts of considerations, right? Competitive, financial, the future of your franchise, what do your fans want, all this kind of stuff comes into play. So I've painted a scenario where you are in charge of a franchise, and you've got about 10 games to go, and you're sitting there right on the bubble. You're maybe the 8th place team, the 9th place team, the 7th place team, something like that. And you've got about 10 games to go. Do you really make a push to lock up that 7th or 8th playoff spot? It's a really important question, because what does it mean to you? Well, being in the playoffs could mean extra games. Being out of the playoffs could mean being in the lottery. All these kind of things come into play. And the question is, for the health and well-being of your business, strategically, you're talking about economics, we're talking about the big picture, strategically, what's the best things for you? What do you want to do? No secret about it, I'm a Boston Celtic fan, and about 2 years ago we were right in exactly that place. As a fan, of course I wanted my Celtics to be in the playoffs, and then as a fan I wanted them to be in the lottery. It's a dilemma. And when you read the question, I want you to tell you that this question was reviewed, and by a happy accident, by an NBA owner, and who thought it was a pretty darn good question. And the particular owner happens also to be an NHL owner, and he actually said that the answer he would have for it was different depending on whether he was talking about his NBA team or his NHL team. And once we are through with the exercise, I'll tell you a little bit more about what his answers were. So read it. It is at the bottom of Unit 5. There is no specific format or length requirement, but I'm asking you to follow the instructions and make this important decision, and then back it up with all the economic and business thought that you can think of. It's going to be really hard if you pick a specific example to, as I say, take the fan hat off. It's going to be really hard for some people, and I've seen that happen, and it just shines through that they're still thinking like a fan. Think like a businessman. Think like an economist. Think like the governor of a state, something like that. What do you want to see happen that's going to help you? and that's where we want to go. So I think, as I said, I think you might actually have fun with it, and it will certainly prove to be very interesting, and I'll be looking forward to you to reading your work. So there it is, no discussion, work on the midterm. If there are any questions, feel free to contact me. I will be waiting for them, and good luck with everything. Thanks a lot. Good night.